Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I am going to join my guest here with us this morning and get her up and going. Good morning, Suzette.
There we go.
Here we are, finally. Sorry about the delay.
I can't hear you though.
It's
hear you.
Let's see. We're gonna.
Give me a second.
Okay, it's down there at the bottom left where it says mute, and you got your little microphone. There's an arrow next to it. And if you click that, it'll say audio settings, and there's probably something in there that's not right. And I'm going to go ahead with our opening comments, Suzette, and we'll figure it out as we go. How about that?
So you can't hear me yet?
Oh, I can hear you fine.
Okay, I can hear you now. We're good.
Awesome. I'm going to change this view for our folks. And I was going to do this, maybe. Can you see my shared screen? Yeah. I'm back. Okay, let's see here. That's not the one I wanted, no. Here we go.
And it's not rising in the sun, it's flower in the sun.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I have it all wrong.
That's the only thing that's wrong.
Okay, well, I'll have to try and remember that here. And I thought it was going to give me the option to share this background, but I guess maybe is it sharing it? I don't know. I have too many things going on here over here in the new studio, trying to get everything up and going. But we want to say good morning to our listeners and watchers out there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on this beautiful Wednesday morning. And obviously there's been some changes going on. Christian has decided to step down as the co-host of Business Connections with Anita, and he's taken over another show, and we wish him well on his new adventure. Let's see what else is going on. After careful consideration and thinking about all you guys out there that continue to support Business Connections with Anita, and I know we're all in the coronavirus and businesses aren't really open right now, but that's why I'm here, is to help keep your name and what you do in front of folks during this hard time, so that when we come out of it, they'll remember you and hopefully help your business grow in the future. And let's see what else. Red Rock Media Productions. In the long term, we'll be able to offer channels to other folks to do shows. So we're going to have all kinds of different genres to be able to do that. I'm meeting with someone this afternoon to see if we can't get that all finalized and kind of on the web end of it that I'm not familiar with, coding and what kind of bandwidth am I going to need to buy a server, those kinds of things to be able to do what I want. And if you want to be on a show or have any want to get any information, you can contact me at Red Rock Media Productions at gmail.com. I decided to leave America Matters Media and start this role on my own over here, and we'll just see where it goes. With everything that's going on and being remote and everything, it just seemed like the best fit for me at this time, and I'm really super excited. So we have guests lined up all the way till May 20th and possibly the end of May. But I have joining me this morning Suzette Frazee. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Good. Did I say your last name right?
It's Frazee.
Frazee. Okay. I looked it up on YouTube actually, so am I bad for trying to see how to pronounce folks' names?
Not at all. We get a lot of freeze, so you were very close.
Awesome. Um, she has Flower in the Sun, which she has produced. She has Grace Films. It's a corporation. And we're going to be talking about Flower in the Sun, which was about sex trafficking. And I believe the storyline took place in the 1900s. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. And we're producing it at this point. It's not been filmed yet.
Oh, okay. That's awesome that it's in the makings, right?
Yes.
So at the half hour mark, we're still going to continue on with JJ. He's going to be calling in, and hopefully I can navigate that and figure that out when that time comes. But and Naomi may call in too. She is in a Reno Council meeting, so she's not sure if she can step away, and I've already been aware of that. But Suzette and I are really passionate about this topic this morning, and we have a lot of information. And one thing that's great about this setup is I don't have to worry about too many commercials or if I'm running late or if I'm going to run over on my time, which is amazing. That takes a lot of stress off of you when you're broadcasting. But I want to mention Jake Jimrick out there in Warsaw, Indiana. He's still in need of a kidney. And if anyone's interested in being a donor, you can find out more information on that on afdesigns.online. We will have another website coming up to redrockmedia.online, and you'll be able to find everything in one place hopefully soon. I got my store moved over. The merchandise store is now on afdesigns.online, so everything is in one place, and you can just take a look and see what we got going on. And this segment is brought to you by Creative Handiworks and Design. And we want to thank him, Mario, for, of course, the one that I don't have up here, right? But we want to thank him for taking care of this segment for us. Over the weekend, I decided to do a little research and just kind of familiarize myself with some things that happen in sex trafficking. You know, we just last week had somebody arrested in Truckee, I believe, Suzette, that took the girl from Idaho.
Yes, yes.
And,
I've been following a few things that have been happening recently. It's just horrible.
yes, and thank God she was found safe. She was lucky. A lot of children do not, it's like the percentage is just sickening that they do not find these children. And, you know, there's the case of Elizabeth Smart. We're all pretty familiar with that. And she survived 9 months of horror. And just in recent years, JC Dugard. You know, I remember when she got taken, and that she went 18 years missing. And then a few years ago, we had the girls in Cleveland, Ohio that were kept in a basement and no one knew they were there. And it ended up being a bus driver. And I watched that documentary and what those girls went through. And Amanda Berry was part of that group. And she had a child with her what do you call them, predator. And so she ended up finding a way out, and she ended up saving that all those girls in that house, including her daughter. So it people don't really understand the thought process of what happens, and we just kind of want to enlighten you today a little bit about what's really going on, especially in our area. But this Stockholm syndrome is another, um, it's a mental thing that goes on with the victim and their predator, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But Suzette, I can't thank you enough for being flexible with this broadcast and just hanging there with me through the first time here, going this route. But can you tell me about what is Grace Films,
Well, let me first tell you about myself, who I am.
please?
Um, Again, name is Suzette Frazee. I actually go by Suzette Sutton-Frazee. That's my legal name. Um, Basically, I live outside of Reno, and I have been a stay-at-home mother for, oh my goodness, 13 years. I have two kids, married to a wonderful husband. Both my kids are, one's 12, one's 13, so I'm kind of at that interesting age in life, parenting. And I've owned Grace Films for about 3 years. I created it really in response to my kids were getting older. What do I do with my life? What do I do now? They don't need me as much,
Right.
And I knew I wanted to get back to the to working in the working field. I was a librarian for years. I worked for an attorney. Um, I've done so many things, and and those were fulfilling and those were great for the time. But I didn't know if I wanted to do those again. And I had gone to college for political science,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wasn't so sure I wanted to go into that field completely. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I'm glad I invested time with my kids, but there comes a time where it's time for Suzette.
Right.
And so so I started kind of poking around Reno and Carson, just seeing what was out there. And I noticed that there are so many amazing nonprofits that serve our community. Reno has so many that do so many different things. And I knew that I wanted to work in like the field of women and women's needs. So through my searching, I said, okay, there's a lot of nonprofits out there that serve women's needs. I mean, tons of them, and which is great. I'm so glad. And I said, we could give our money to them, which we do support them.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to do more than that. I wanted to really get my feet in there and do more. And I said, okay, so what do I want to do? So I really started thinking about it. And I remembered about 10 years ago, we lived in Michigan, and this woman came to our church and spoke, and she was probably 65, 70. She wasn't young, and she worked in the anti-sex trafficking field. She was actually on the front lines, and she would, when women and girls were rescued out of it, she would come in and then she would support them in any need that they had. And it really resonated with me. And of course, my kids were little at that point. I could really not do much about it, but it just sat with me, and it just sat in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So when I noticed like groups like Awaken, for instance, in Reno, I said, I want to be a part of that movement, but I didn't know how at that point. So through thinking and thinking and thinking, and just kind of letting it sit, I decided to write. I said, I'm going to write. So at first I thought, well, maybe I'll write a book. And I said, well, okay, we'll see. So it ended up being a script, which, I've never done, but really wasn't that difficult. And the story that I ended up writing, at first it was called Slaying the Giants. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, I could do something with this. So I really looked at my options, and then I said, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to produce it myself, because I didn't want to sell it and then have it changed. and have
Mm-hmm.
the story and the integrity of the story change. And and I said, okay, if I self-produce it, I'm going to do more than just put a great story out there. I mean, it's, go big or go home. That's what I like to say. Go big or go home. And so, so what I did is I created Grace Films. I said, I'm going to produce this myself. And I had a couple partners. One partner did step down, not for any bad reasonings. She had other things she needed to deal with. But my partner now, Jesse, he's a director out of Michigan. He's directed two films. That one is called Lost Heart that they're just finishing up now. The other one's called Wild Faith, and just beautifully directed. And he's just a phenomenal writer. So you know, we worked a lot on this story. Basically, he worked a lot on the story.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go back to Grace Films. Once I created Grace Films, I said, you know what? This is an incredible way to spread a message, to put a movie out. I mean, lots of people love to go see movies. They either go to the theater, at least they did before Corona, and they will again. I really do believe it's going to go back to the way it was. Um, but you can get it at home from your sofa. I mean, their video on demand is huge, especially right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what a great way to get a message out.
Mm-hmm.
And so Flower in the Sun is really, there's so many different themes in the story, but one of the themes, of course, is trafficking, sex trafficking.
Yes.
There's also drug abuse, um, childhood sexual abuse. I mean, there's a lot of different elements of this story that I felt really needed to be, the spotlight needed to be put on. Um, so, you know, this really started Grace Films, but I want to go beyond this first film. My plans for Grace Films is to come up with other subjects that we can just put out there. I mean, I think I talked to you. One of the films I really want to work is aging out of the foster care system.
Yeah.
And I really want to find nonprofits. I have one in mind actually in Reno, that, that really try to help these kids, because oftentimes they end up on the street on drugs and in sex trafficking a lot of times.
Homeless
Boys
a
and
lot
girls.
of times.
Yeah. So, okay, so I want to do more for other communities too. I want to do that. I want to go, I want to do the first couple films here, and I
Mm-hmm.
branch out to other states and other cities and focus on other themes. So that's what I plan on doing. Now, what do I mean by, making a positive impact? I say, what do I mean by all this? Okay. Again, it's not just about making a great film, Anita.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with that. You have to have a great film, of course, because you want people to see it. But it's about supporting the nonprofits. I mean, that's huge to me. And these are the backbone of our communities. We need nonprofits to serve our communities.
Where would we be right now if it wasn't for Salvation Army, all the restaurants,
Yes,
all the people helping the frontline people with
yes.
food? And it's really been amazing how our community has come together to help others.
I mean, I am just, well, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but Reno, I'm just absolutely blessed to see people like Naomi. I'm just absolutely blessed to see how our communities is coming together and helping each other. And because there's so much negativity out there from other, politics and negativity and this and, but to see people actually making masks for each other and, giving toilet paper. They have, toilet paper was the big thing.
Yep, everybody was like, okay, what store in town has toilet paper?
Right, but then
You'd see it posted on Facebook. So, it kind of helped. Facebook has become, people can talk their stuff or whatever.
yeah,
But you know what? If I want to know something, I can get it answered faster on Facebook than I can call around or
right.
go and do all that stuff. But I want to take a quick break right now because I see JJ has joined us and I want to give him a chance to talk about some real estate here we have going on in our area. So just stay with us, folks, and we'll connect JJ here and allow him to talk. Yes, we want him to talk. Good morning, JJ. See if we can get him on. Oh, wait. There
Here,
he
can you
is.
hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome.
How you
How,
doing?
Oh, well, 20 minutes late getting on air this morning, but hey, I got great folks out there. Willow Bill's out there watching. I say Naomi Dewar is on there watching, and folks are just, gathering up, and we continue on. JJ, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Getting ready to go show some houses today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, I'm so happy. You know what? I was looking at your statistics on your Facebook page, and I have to say, you're a pretty blessed realtor right now. With gaining likes, your likes has gone up 275% since you started broadcasting with Business Connections with Anita. And we thank you so much for your sponsorship. But
You bet.
how's the market going in our area right now?
It is, it's been pretty slow, I would say. There's a lot of people have not wanted to look at houses. The governor had told us a couple weeks ago that no open houses. We cannot look at tenant occupied properties. But sellers that are willing to show are still fair game. And listings listings have stayed about the same. Monday, I was slammed. All of a sudden, it seems like people were coming out of the woodwork, and they're trying to get prepared. They're ready to get started for when this ends. It will end. It's just when.
Right. Yeah. That's the hard thing. But do you have any predictions of what's going to happen?
I do. My prediction is I think it is going to be slower while we have the stay-at-home mandate. Of course,
Yeah.
there is a lot of people browsing houses online, and my clients especially, I've been telling, let's get ready, let's get you pre-approved so you're ready to rock as soon as this does end. If they don't want to get out and look at stuff now, I believe that with the governor's orders yesterday, it's gonna slow down a little bit. There's gonna be there's gonna be some opportunity out there because there is gonna be sellers that need the money now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's gonna go down too much. And then with the building starts, which is developments that are starting each permit building of each single story or single family house, they're way down. They're down about 30%. And as you know, in Reno, we don't have a lot of inventory already. So
Right.
without them building as fast as they were, I think once we come out of this, once again, we're going to have a supply and demand issue, and it's going to drive prices up again. So I think if the people that have the opportunity, as soon as we come out of this, you got a chance of getting a great deal.
Yes, I think so too. And I think there's going to be programs to help folks too. I know we have a lot of things to work out going forward, and that's one of the things Naomi's working so hard in our community for us and letting us know what's going on. I saw a little bit of our town meeting yesterday, and they're discussing the lake. I think is it Lake Ridge tennis? Is it Lake Ridge or Lakes? It's not Lakeside. Lake Ridge, I
Lake
think.
Ridge tennis area.
Yeah, they're getting ready to renovate that, and she had some great ideas and stuff. So, JJ, this was an awesome experience. Thanks for hanging in there with us and Red Rock Media Productions. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great day, everybody.
You too, and I will be in touch with you, and we'll go on from there.
Sounds good. Thanks a
Have a
lot,
good
Anita.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And there we go. So we're back to you, Suzette.
Yes, back to me.
And if Naomi can call in later, we'll take her call later. Um, we have Denise out there watching. Want to make sure we say hello to our folks that are watching. I'll get a little more organized as we go along. I'm kind of used to my co-host helping me out, but I don't have one of those now. So it's just going to be me. And we were talking about a little bit about sex trafficking, and I keep losing my selfie light now, so there we have that. So the lighting kind of went out on me. Um, so let's continue on. What exactly is sex trafficking for folks across the world that are maybe in a village that doesn't know where this is? Some people listen remotely like that.
Right. Well, sex trafficking really is a subset or falls under human trafficking. Human trafficking is basically taking someone and forcing them into something like labor or sex trafficking, or I mean, there's a lot of facets of it. But I'm focusing, of course, on sex trafficking in our talk today. But sex trafficking basically is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of commercial sex act. Um, I looked up, I like to back up what I say with statistics. So I kind of looked up things as I prepared for this. And,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
do the same thing because
right.
I want to know what I'm talking about when I go on air. And
Well, it's that, and it's not just talking about something; it's having the study behind it. Like
right.
you know, I was, I had asked somebody recently, what is the most reputable website to go to for these statistics? Because you can Google sex trafficking, and all these statistics come up. But where do they come from? Are they from actual studies? Are they something that just somebody threw up on a website? So
Mm-hmm.
I've actually found, well, I mean, there's several websites that are wonderful, but there's one that was really good because it actually cites the studies and the case studies um, for all these statistics. But, one of the things that people, I think, one of the misconceptions of sex trafficking is it's always women and children and sometimes men. That's the misconception. Sometimes there are men that are sex trafficked and yes, the majority are women and children, but it does happen to men. It's just not reported as often because there's a stigma, of course, with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be a very difficult thing for anybody to report, I would think.
The movie Taken comes to mind. Do you remember that movie?
I believe I saw bits and pieces of it. I've never actually watched the whole thing.
Yeah, these two girls travel to Europe, and the dad's all apprehensive, and everything. And the one girl, they go on their, teenagers. They go on this trip, and things don't turn out quite like they're supposed to. And then the one girl witnesses her friend getting attacked because of a guy that took a picture of them together when they first arrived. And that's how simple these people can get into your life all of a sudden.
Oh yeah. Well, and the other thing is, with sex trafficking, one of the sad statistics is sometimes it's a family member that actually takes the child and gets and grooms them and puts them into that terrible, awful, evil business. And so, it, it's such a hard fact, but the reason why I think, well, I don't think, in looking this up, one of the reasons why sex trafficking is still going on and it's still a booming business is it's very hard to punish these traffickers. And why is it very hard to punish them? Because the victims are often the ones that are punished. For instance, prostitution is a perfect example. I mean, it's legalized here, but in other states it's not. So who's the one that gets usually arrested? The prostitute.
Right.
Which I find very interesting. So there's that fear of law enforcement, fear of getting arrested, fear of getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
In other
And I think the more powerful the man, like not to say anything against anybody, but because until you're proven guilty, right?
right.
But I watched Surviving R. Kelly on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have money and you get into the higher level of society, a lot more damaging things go on, I think.
Oh, power and money, absolutely. And I
And
mean, that's what makes this business keep going, money. I mean, if it wasn't so lucrative, it wouldn't continue.
now I want to bring up too, these girls are sold 15 to 20 times a day.
Terrible. It's terrible. As a matter of fact, I was going to talk about this a little later on, but there's this one um, trafficking case that happened in the Reno area, and it involved a lot of young people. And these girls were basically forced to have sex, like you said, 15 to 20 times a day, and it was, and it was all around the Reno area. Terrible. I mean, just terrible, and that's why I'm that's why I'm making this movie, and that's why I'm trying to support these organizations.
Yeah, Awaken is one of the.
Awaken is one of them, of course,
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing the hard work. Making a movie is easy. Well, somewhat easy. I mean,
Compared to what,
compared
the
to what
victims have had to go through, right?
right. So, so this that's my motivation in doing all of this. But let's go back to statistics. Okay, so this website that I came upon is called worldwithoutexploitation.org,
Mm-hmm.
and their stats are awesome. I mean, they have one tab that you go to that has specifically stats. And one of the stats that I found that is that 81% of all human trafficking in the United States is commercial sex trafficking. 81% out of 100. That is a huge number. So that means that basically the other 19% is not just, but labor trafficking. So what will happen is oftentimes a girl will be, or somebody will be brought over to be forced labor. It's really slave labor. But the 81%, Anita, that is, wow.
That's a large number. That's a
And then,
large percentage.
yeah, and then if you look at it further, they said 84% of prostituted women and girls are survivors of childhood sexual abuse. That's a huge number too. I mean, I know sexual abuse is rampant, but wow.
Right.
Wow. And then of course, substance use and abuse are common among those in the sex trade. And, one of the reasons is when let's say a child or a young person is forced into the sex trade, into human trafficking, their trafficker will oftentimes get them addicted to alcohol or drugs to keep them pliable. So they'll do what they say, basically. And so that's that reason for that. And then you had sent me these, but I knew these, you can find this anywhere. In the U.S., the most vulnerable ages are for girls 12 to 14,
Mm-hmm.
for boys 11 to 13. That hits home hard because I have a 12-year-old boy and I have a 13-year-old, almost 14-year-old daughter. And so, we've got to protect our kids.
Yeah.
Those are pretty, and then with the internet, of course, it's an open door to your home if you're not careful.
Right.
Because if your child goes on the internet and you're not watching what they do, or you're not involved, then they can get involved with somebody who's just not a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be as a parent, you have to be so proactive in your children's lives. Not smothering, of course, because they'll
Right.
do that,
Right. It's a fine line between allowing them to have independence and still protecting them, I think.
And that's the hard thing. I try to give my kids, a lot of freedoms, but you still have to be a parent.
Right.
You have to parent them, and they're vulnerable and they need to be protected.
Now, I saw some things when I was watching those documentaries, like what was kind of sickening to me is how many women are involved in this.
Yeah.
And not that men are any different than us, but being the nurturer I am, I guess, I just don't understand. So, I saw a little video of where the grandma was watching the child. She was probably about, she was young. She was like 6 or 7. And she was out on the front lawn, and this woman come up and said, "Can you help me find my puppy? I've lost my puppy." And children love animals, and 9 times out of 10. So she's like, "Yeah, I can help you." And then off in a car she went, and the grandma comes out and no kid, and it's just scary how quick it can happen.
Right. And that's through stranger abduction. What's even, that's terrible. what gets me are, I was just going to talk about grooming. I'm sure you've heard that word grooming. Um, this can happen by a family friend, or it can happen by a family member. It, of course, can happen by a stranger also. And I'll explain what grooming is. Basically, grooming is somebody preparing and training their victim for the purpose of forced or coerced sexual activity. And of course, the victim doesn't know that. Oftentimes, let's say it's a 10-year-old girl, and let's say her parents aren't as involved in her life, and she's just really running the streets, and she's taking care of herself. I mean, that happens a lot. And somebody comes along, and it could be a woman, and it could be a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Comes along, and they say, "Well, let me, here, let me be your friend. You need a friend."
And then comes the eye candy, right? I'll give you this if you
I'll
do
give you
that.
this. And it's so the victim's vulnerable,
Well,
oftentimes.
they don't have the mental capacity as an adult.
Right.
So I think that's why, when we were growing up, the age group was maybe teenagers. But now it's gone to a younger group, it seems to me, in recent years. And I think that's because the predator can mold their brain and train them, groom them
Groom them, yeah.
before they get, too far into having their own opinion.
Well, and that's the thing, the trafficker preys, the person that's doing the grooming preys on their emotional neediness or low self-esteem, or sometimes even economic vulnerability. I'll give you an example of that. So they'll try to get their victim to trust them by maybe buying gifts. That's what I mean by economic vulnerability. Here, you need a coat. I'm going to buy you a really nice coat because it's cold. Here, I'm going to take care of your needs. And they'll try to be a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sorry.
or if it's a teenager, and the teenager's like, let's say, into smoking pot every so often, they'll buy the pot for them, and they'll appear as if they care, or
Right.
they'll fill that role of parent.
Which leads me to we talked earlier about the Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And that I want to explain to folks is a condition which hostages develop a psychological alliance with their captors during captivity. A hostage's development of positive feelings towards the captor, no previous relationship between the hostage and the captor.
Mm-hmm.
So, they just create the connection with their captor out of survival a lot of times.
Right, and unfortunately, because like I said, the trafficker will focus on a need of this person, and it can even be an adult young woman. I mean, it's not necessarily a child.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it can be a family member, a friend of the family, a stranger. They'll focus on this need, they'll fill that need, and then the person really grows an emotional attachment to them, and then they turn ugly because then they start demanding, and they start demanding, well, I did this for you. So there's that natural human guilt that we would have. Well, you did do this for me, and they do care about me because they think they care about them. But then the beatings start, and they still say, well, I shouldn't have done that, so I deserve, so there's all these excuses that the victim goes through in their mind. It's very complicated and emotional. It's an emotional manipulation that is so complicated. Um, you know, I was I was actually reading a story about this young lady that was on a plane with this older man, and she was fearful looking, but she didn't say a word to anybody, not a word. And the stewardess knew something was up, but she couldn't put her finger on what it was. And so when they landed, she had called the authorities, and they questioned the man, and actually he was trafficking this young girl. She was like 14, and they rescued the girl. And some people would say, well, why didn't the girl say anything? She was on a plane full of people. Well, this explains it. I was looking up on U.S. Homeland Security website, and one of the things I read is exactly the reason. The trauma that's caused by trafficking can be so great that the victims don't even identify themselves as victims, so they don't ask for help. And even if they're within a bunch of people around them, they don't ask for help. And it's not some people would be like, well, that doesn't make sense. It's kind of like when people blame the woman who's being beaten by her husband. Why didn't she leave? It's a psychological thing. There's something
Well,
that happens
usually
there.
there's no money.
You
The
know,
guy takes all the money.
there's a
She's just,
manipulation, right? And it's
and
like
you feel
someone,
helpless. Helplessness is a
right,
very sickening place to be.
right, exactly.
I think we've all been there at one time in our life, though.
Oh yeah. So you really have to find compassion for these poor victims because they're stuck. They
Hmm.
think they're stuck, and and I mean, when you're in that position, what do you do? I mean, who do you talk to? And especially if it's a family member that's involved, who do you talk to?
Hmm.
And then you're afraid if you do talk, are you going to get hurt?
Hmm.
Or are you going to get starved? Because there's a lot of different ways that traffickers deal with their victims in horrible ways: starvation, beating, withholding drugs. I mean, there's so many different ways. It's
Starving.
terrible.
I know, it is terrible. And do we have anything else we want to cover here? We're getting close to the end
Um,
already.
I think that is pretty much the first all I had to say for the first part.
Okay. Um, yeah, it went real fast, huh? I'm looking forward to seeing how things change in the future with sex trafficking, and I really honestly believe it starts at home with the parents.
Absolutely. I mean, it's
I mean, you got to start almost in the elementary years. I mean, we were told too in the 70s that, don't talk to strangers, don't take candy from people, those kinds of things.
but we have to
Um,
step it up now because we have the internet.
right.
And that's like opening it honestly, if you're not careful, it's like opening the door to all the weirdos and perverts out
Mhm.
there, basically.
There was this website I heard on when I was researching called backpage.com or something.
Hmm.
And that's where you could go to, it was like the menu, I guess you would say. And it's, I guess escorts are a little different. They're not in this that's a choice for them really. Or do sex trafficking girls end up into being escorts later on because that's the only life they know?
Well, that's pretty much you hit it on the head there. That's a that's an interesting area. I mean, Awaken kind of covers a lot of that. You know, I'm careful with how I ex- what I, my how I express my opinion on this particular subject because it's a red herring, because you have the escorts or
Yes.
even the legalized prostitutes that say, well, I like doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course if you look at statistics, and sex trafficking, prostitution, or whatever, you're going to find that there's a high percentage of sexual abuse within their past, and that makes you wonder if someone's groomed them from the very beginning,
Right.
to do this. And
Now we
we know,
you
like
brought you brought up a girl's name to me with the last name of Brown.
Cyntoia Brown.
Don't they have a movie coming out on Netflix about her? I think I saw something.
I think so. Actually, her story, from what I've read several things on her story, but she was groomed from a very young age. She was sexually molested. She was forced into prostitution at a
Mm,
very young age. I want to say it was like 11 or 10. It was pretty young age. And she ended up murdering a John. Now, a John is the person who pays for the sex, basically. She ended up
yes.
murdering John, and she went to prison.
She was 16 when she
She
did
was
that.
16 when she did it. And so, you've got two groups of people. You have one group that says, well, she murdered the John. I mean, she killed the guy. And there was reasons why she did. She gave reasons why. And of course, remember, she was 16. I mean, she's got a 16-year-old brain at that point,
Right.
and a brain that's been harmed from abuse all of her life. And then you've got your other group that says, well, what I just said, which is she's been harmed, she was abused, she was groomed into this, she didn't know any better, she was afraid. I mean, so you have you two different groups of people, but she's now out of prison. I mean, she had been convicted, and I believe that she was convicted. She had life without possibility of parole, and then some people stepped in and they overturned her conviction, which I think was the right. I mean, she had been in prison. I want to say for 15 years, so I think she had served definitely enough time for killing somebody. But gosh, if you look at her history, she really was doomed from day one. This poor child.
And I think it's sometimes when they've been groomed for so long like that, they just snap one day, you
Oh,
know,
oh,
for self survival.
yes, and I think anyone would.
I agree. Totally. Oh, what other films have you done? What other organizations have you helped?
Well, I have. This is our first film, so I
Okay.
probably should go to talking about how this is our first film. Um, this is my first film, actually. Grace Films, I created. Like I said, this is my first film. Jesse, my partner, he has been in this business for I want to say 17 years. He's actually out of Michigan. Real talented young man, younger than me actually. Real talented young man. And I'm just absolutely proud to be partnering with him in this. This
It's
is
so
my.
weird you say that because I'm meeting a Jesse later today.
All right.
And he does this kind of stuff. So I'm interested to see if it's the same Jesse.
I don't think this. Well, if he lives in
Is
Michigan,
he?
very
Oh,
well
I
could be.
see.
You know.
It's just ironic, you know, the same. Jesse's not like that common of a name, really.
Right. Right.
And it's just a, you know, obviously I'm on the right track. Those are signs I take from the universe that I'm on the right track.
Right. There you go. That's good.
Yeah, trying to stay positive and you know, broaden my horizons just like everybody else out here in Reno.
Oh yeah.
And you know, we got to grow with the times.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to seeing this when it becomes available. Do you have to wait for the COVID-19 to kind of settle down before you start production on that?
Well, we actually yes. Well, yes and no. I mean, right now we're in the process of obviously when you make a movie you have to have funding, and because this is Grace Film's first movie, we
The
have to
funding's a little low, right?
fund. Well, we have a little bit of a budget, but the we have to find private investors. We don't have to. This is the route we're going. We want to find private equity investors um, to invest in this, and I know they're out there, so that's
Yep.
not a problem. Because people invest in movies all the time, so it's not that difficult to find. It's just finding the right people because this is really a passion project for me. It's finding the right people that believe in this message, because you know the bottom line for Grace Films is I want to bless nonprofits. So a portion of profit from this film, from Flower in the Sun, will go to 3 nonprofits, and we'll talk about those a little later. But that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
So, it's finding the funding, and then eventually, once we fund this first film, then subsequent films, I'm hoping will really pour into the next and then to the next. So then we don't have to rely on private funding, private
Right.
funding.
Yeah,
So
that'd be good, huh?
that's my ultimate goal. That might take a few years to achieve, which is fine. I'm up to it. I'm this is this is something that I'm going to do, that I've been working on, like I said, for 3 years. But the average, for an independent film is between 5 and 10 years is really the average from the beginning, the conceptual idea until the actual filming. So I'm on the right track. 3 years, I'm still in the infancy of it. So,
Mm,
but we definitely have some good roads that we're going down right now, um, when it comes to this film. So,
awesome.
yeah.
And then do you have any other statistics you want to share with us or anything? Or
Um, I have actually quite a few. Uh,
okay, let's get started on that.
let's see. You know, I was looking at Nevada in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to find a couple of stats from Nevada. And of course, I went to Worlds Without Exploitation because again, it's an amazing website. And um, you know, I love their kind of their mantra, and it's what I'm thinking with this film. It's basically this organization. Its main goal is to have a world where no person is bought, sold, or exploited.
Mm-hmm.
That's the world we should be definitely striving toward. And anyways, if you go to the website, there's a little tab that says statistics, and you just click on that, or a little word. And what I like about their stats is everything that they claim on their website, every percentage is backed up with a case study. So they'll have a little, a footnote. Um, so that's why I trust what they say, because and some of these studies, one of them was 6 years long. So I mean, they're good studies.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, there was this one particular study done in Nevada, and it was done. It was sexual survival interviews, okay, with 26 survivors of commercial sexual exploitation, and they were interviewed. And of those interviewed, um, they were all between the ages of 18 and 24, and all of them were sexually exploited before the age of 18. Four of those interviewed reported family members were involved in their sex trafficking. So four of them. 8 of them indicated that their sex trafficking was a direct result of a boyfriend. Again, the whole grooming thing, that can
Mm-hmm.
happen that way too. Oh, I think you're so beautiful. I want to date you. They start dating, and then things get ugly. Or they start dating, and he buys her all these things, and she feels like the most wonderful woman, which it should be that way, of course. But then it turns.
Yeah, it's a condition of your love for me.
Yep. So I'm going to give you here. I gave you that ring, so you need to do something for me. And then she feels like she needs to do something, which she shouldn't, of course. But this is how she feels.
Right, because he gave me this, I'm obligated.
I'm obligated. So then she starts, doing what he says,
Yep.
and that oftentimes is another way of grooming is dating. So and then
Well, and I've seen too, Suzette, on the documentaries I watched, like college boys will say, "Hey, we're having a beach party. We want you to come along." And then the girls go to the beach party or whatever, and it sounds like a fun time. And they drug them in their drinks, and then they wake up in somewhere they don't even know where they're at.
right,
Can you imagine how terrifying our watchers and listeners out there? Can you imagine how terrifying that would be as a child to just be snatched up and wake up somewhere? You could sometimes probably, Suzette, they're chained up in a cellar someplace
right,
and they wake up like that.
yeah,
Can you imagine the helplessness at that point and nobody knows where you're at? Will they look for me? That was one of the things Elizabeth Smart was like, have they stopped looking for me?
right.
And she was right in plain sight, but she just uh walked herself through it. You know what I mean?
Right. And well, that's just like that case in Ohio that you mentioned. I can't remember the young lady's name that had escaped.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the girls that there were two other girls that were locked in the basement with her. One of the girls that were with them, um, she her family didn't really look for her, and she was one of those kids that were lost in the cracks, which is really terribly sad. But the man that kidnapped her knew that, and that's why he preyed on that. And it's that's why you had mentioned we've got to, if you have children, you've got to constantly, especially if your children are 8, 9, start talking to them about um, really having their radar up when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to strangers, or even when it comes to they just need to be careful, because and you don't want your kid to be paranoid, and that's the thing,
It's so hard because you can't expect a child. I have a hard time even as an adult going out and being aware everywhere I'm at because my mind's on like I got to get here and got to get there, got to get this done. And I'm not thinking about the dude that's walking up on me. I was over here at my mailboxes, right here in my complex, getting the mail the other day. And I was not, I was my 6 feet away or whatever. And I put my key in the mailbox and went to get my mail. And he came right up on my back right here. And he was an older gentleman. And he goes, he said something. What he wanted to do was spray Lysol on it, on my mailbox. Okay, but he said something that made that self trigger go. You need to be aware right now, because of the way he worded it. It wasn't like, "Hey, let me sanitize your mailbox for you." You know,
Right, right.
he said, "Let me give you a shot of this." That's what he said. Let me give you a shot of this. And that's when my whole body just went, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it kind of freaked me out. But, you just never know. You get comfortable, especially in your apartment complex. I walk around here. All my neighbors know me. Now they're starting to leave me gifts because I'm getting known around the neighborhood, I guess.
Right.
And I have some great neighbors, But it's just so easy for a child to just come up missing out of a playground, off of their bike. You know, when I was young, I grew up in Indiana, Suzette, and you might be familiar with Cedar Point
Mm-hmm.
over there in Toledo, Ohio. And there was a girl that was kidnapped at that amusement park. And what the guy did, or woman, or whatever, they took her into a bathroom, cut her hair, changed her clothes, and then walked right out with that. They gave her a shot, so she wouldn't be acting up. And they just walked right out out of the place with her, But because they didn't change everything out on her, the mom recognized like her shoes or something like that they didn't change out. And that's how they got that girl back. But it's horrific to think what people go to make that money to slave those people out.
Right. Absolutely.
And different countries are probably even worse,
Oh,
because we don't have other countries, third world countries don't have laws like America does.
right. I know that a lot of, I don't know a lot of detail about it, but I have definitely read that um, a lot of countries in Asia have a huge problem. Um, there are some countries in Africa that still have a problem with this, and um, I don't know about the Middle East, but yeah, there definitely are definitely some hot spots.
Yes.
And thankfully there's other nonprofits like A21 that are around the world that help. Like
Yeah.
Cambodia. I mean, they have rescued so many girls in Cambodia. And so it's a blessing that these organizations that want to stop this from happening exist. So we
I,
need to support
I
them.
have some good friends out in Uganda I met when I was on air one day. And Jeffrey, he runs a nonprofit to help children that need food and clothes. And he, struggling him himself, and he's trying to help others. And Uganda is another place, that it's in Africa, obviously. So there's definitely hot spots in Africa.
Oh, absolutely. And uh, I had a friend. He's unfortunately deceased now, but he had started 3 orphanages in Myanmar, and Myanmar used to be called Burma. And one of the things that he had told me when he first started, finding kids on the street and putting them in these 3 orphanages, and they're all just doing marvelous. These kids. He said one of the biggest things was sex trafficking and kidnapping these kids. And so it was hard to gain the trust of these children that were on the street to have them come in to the orphanages to live, because there was this distrust,
Mm-hmm.
which is totally understandable. So, but anyway, yeah, I totally, it's rampant everywhere.
Now, I see in our notes that we went back and forth. Las Vegas, little bit bigger city,
Mhm.
little bit bigger problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. We have about probably about 7 minutes more or so, and then we'll wrap it up so folks can get on with their day out there and take away some good information from us. But um, yeah, like in August of 2019, the FBI rescued 14 minors in a Las Vegas sex trafficking sweep.
Right,
The rescued minors were between the ages of 14 and 17. In addition to the minors, 39 adult sex trafficking victims were also rescued.
right. And you don't know, and the thing about that is you don't know when they were forced into sex trafficking. So just because they're adults now doesn't mean that they weren't forced in,
Right.
before. And thankfully, 33 suspected sex traffickers were then thrown in prison, hopefully, but they're
Mm-hmm.
all legal adults.
Mm-hmm.
And then that, of course, was, taken from the Las Vegas Review Journal. But, right here, I talked a little bit about it earlier. In 2019, the FBI arrested numerous adults in connection with underage sex trafficking. The victims were under the age of 16. All of the victims. I'm not sure how many there were, um, but these victims were forced to have sex with older clients under duress of bodily harm. And so they were carted from place to place to place. And oftentimes, like we had mentioned earlier, they were forced to have sex, between like 12, 15 times a day with 15 different Johns. And, that's just, ugh, it just breaks my heart. But just this month, I think you had mentioned it. This might be the same case, but it might be a different one. In the Reno Gazette, a man and a woman pled guilty to attempting to force a minor into sex trafficking. Um, the sad thing is, to attempt to sex traffic is only punishable from 1 to 6 years. 1 to 6 years, and up to $10,000 in a fine. We got to do better. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are kids. These are young people. We got to do better by them.
This is our future. Our kids are our future. They're going to take, I have no kids. So I have to take care of all these kids in the community because they're going to be the ones taking care of me when I'm old and I can't go get groceries because of COVID-19.
Right.
So, I'm going to love on them as much as I can.
Right. Absolutely.
And, and this also probably leads to a little bit of suicide, I would imagine, too, Suzette.
Yeah, and I did see some, I didn't write them down, but I did see that there's a higher instance of suicide. Um, because if you think about it, if 85% in Nevada, or 84%, I think it was, are sexually molested to begin with before they're put into this horrible, evil trafficking. I mean, can you imagine the depression and the anxiety and everything else that goes with this? I mean, it wouldn't surprise you. So I have seen stats that are pretty high on suicide.
There's probably even emotions we can't even comprehend.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I just can't. So it's this is something we definitely need to keep it addressing in our community and keep fighting.
I think, you know, for folks that have been abused as a child, they can kind of, feel what might go on in here. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, uh, Growing up in a household that had a lot of tension and stress and things like that, uh, you know, I could have easily fell into the trap,
Hmm.
you know, but I didn't because I've been a Christian since I was 8 years old, and Jesus always is he's my strength, and he's always got my back. And I pray for all my watchers and listeners all the time. I don't push my religion or my Christianity or my beliefs on other people,
Hmm.
but I can tell you that people come to me because they see something. and they know that I'm a resource. And just like with the masks, I got a message, hey, do you know where I can buy masks?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, the flag store, I'm here. And so I was able to hook up another business with someone. And this subject to me, sex trafficking, it's it just really needs to be brought to light a lot more than it is.
Right.
Um, and I can't thank you enough for being on here with me today, Suzette, and
Okay.
hanging through all the firsts here with my Red Rock Media Productions company. And we can hit up the final points here, and then we'll end this broadcast and keep in touch.
All right. No, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk about my heart. And I do have to say, you know, I personally was never sex trafficked, but I was sexually molested. So I do. So this really, when I read stats like that, they hit home for me.
Mm.
And I'm not ashamed to say it because I'm the victim. I was the one that was victimized. So I'm not ashamed to say it, but I can understand. I can understand where, you know, some of these young people, that's such a hard thing to deal with. I can understand it.
Well,
Sexual,
losing your virginity, whether you're male or female, is a huge thing anyway.
yes. So
And to have it robbed from you.
yes, yep, exactly. So it is a very difficult thing to deal with. So I can understand when I read these stats, it is hard to read them sometimes, but you know, I'm glad I'm doing this. This is where my passion comes from. I'm glad I'm doing this. So
Yes, and we look forward to supporting you any way we can.
appreciate it.
And we look forward to when this film is done and ready to view. I can't wait.
Me too.
No, it's coming, honey. It's
It
coming.
is. It is. Amen.
Yep. The first person that comments films into our comments on our Facebook, you will win one of my merchandise items from businessconnectionswithanita.com. We can't thank Suzette enough for sharing with us today. And thanks to Naomi Dewar for always supporting us out there in the Reno area with her. She's with Ward 2, Reno Council member, and she's doing a lot for our community. And next week, I have Kevin and Carissa Schroeder on with me, and we're going to talk about some financial services. And I'm sure that we could all probably use that information right now on how to work this little no income a little better, right? I don't know how people are doing it. I'm blessed that my boyfriend takes good care of me, and we are still working over here on this end. So I work from home mostly and don't go out too much. But if you do go out there, stay safe. And Suzette, do you have any final thoughts for our folks out there listening? We have quite a few people listening in on us today.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the 3 nonprofits that we're supporting.
Perfect.
Awaken, of course, is one. It's an anti-trafficking group right in Reno. Exquisite, with an X, and then Quizit. Exquisite, that's out of Carson City. Wonderful group that helps to empower women who have gone through some stuff. And then the Crisis Pregnancy Center of Reno. Amazing group, all amazing groups, and I'm very proud to have partnered with them.
Well, we thank you so much for your continued support in our community. And I guess we'll see everybody next week, 10 a.m. Wednesday. You guys are the best part of my week. I love all you guys out there. Suzette, thank you again. JJ Reno Realtor, make sure to like his page to make sure you stay up with the latest. And we'll see you guys next week. We love you all.